May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be always acceptable to you, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. As I thought about today, I thought about the word demon to start. And I wonder when that word demon is spoken out loud, what you picture. I think for most of us, it's probably something with horns and wings, claws and fangs, maybe red skin or black skin, kind of a grotesque body with some deformities to it, probably. I, in fact, considered to begin the sermon by showing you images of demons. I even looked online for classical depictions of them. They were actually pretty intense, especially if there were going to be children among us. To be honest, I'm not even entirely comfortable describing the most disturbing aspects of the pictures I found. And yet today's gospel reading is undoubtedly about demons, about these things which terrify us at some level, such that we have to depict them in this way in art. In today's passage, what we find is Jesus traveling across the Sea of Galilee to the land of the Gerasenes, Gentiles, different people, unclean people, as far as the Israelites would have been concerned. And he's met there by a man who was possessed by demons. Now, there was nothing subtle about the kind of possession this man was undergoing. He had no clothes on. These demons had completely taken over his life. He was forced to live in the local tombs. His community, for fear of what he would do, would even chain him up. But sometimes he'd break free of those chains and then run into the wild, we're told. Now, when this possessed man encountered Jesus, he fell down before him, and the demon spoke, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" After a brief conversation, we're told Jesus drove the demons from the man into a herd of swine who killed themselves. And when people from the village came to see what happened, they were surprised to find the man sitting in front of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And not just surprised, but fearful of what Jesus had done. Now, the truth is, I think, for most of us living today, the idea of demons feels pretty foreign when we're trying to think about our actual lives, right? Those fit into, again, those fictional spaces of stories and movies. It's easy to think this has nothing to do with me, really. I'm not possessed by demons like that. My life is pretty good. I'm a nice person. I try to help others. I give money to organizations that help others. I often try to help others myself, whether it's serving at PADS or some other opportunity. I go to church regularly. But I wonder if thinking like that might be a mistake. Because while most of us aren't possessed like the man in today's story, that doesn't mean we don't have our own demons too. C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Screwtape Letters. And yes, you can find it in our library, thanks to our volunteers who've cataloged it. In fact, even online in our library. And in this book, The Screwtape Letters, what the story is about is this senior demon, Screwtape, who's writing to his nephew, Wormwood, a younger demon. And his goal is to help his nephew lead a person astray. And one of the patterns that emerges is that while the younger demon often wants to use flashy and dramatic kinds of temptations, the older demon urges the younger one to tempt his victim in subtle, nearly imperceptible ways. In the 12th letter, the senior demon goes so far as to write, "The safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts." In a way, it's this kind of temptation and the possession that results, which is closer, I think, to the experience of most of us. We have our faults and struggles, but they remain hidden from view, and oftentimes even hidden from ourselves. And so a question we might then wonder about is, how can we be honest about what our demons are? How can we even see them for what they are? Maybe we care too much about what other people think of us. Maybe we turn our children into trophies to increase our own sense of self-worth. Maybe we have to numb ourselves for our own feelings of loss and longing by using alcohol and drugs. Maybe we hear a voice inside us telling us we're not enough. Not smart enough, not good enough, not good looking enough, not interesting enough. maybe we fear no one. Not even God really loves us. I think in a way it would be easier if the demons that confronted us actually looked like they're typically portrayed in art and the movies, wouldn't it? Perhaps this passage is then, in part, an invitation to do the work of wondering, what is it that truly possesses me? What kinds of self-destructive behaviors might be a part of my life in keeping me from the kind of life God dreams for me? How might I be trapped in patterns that keep me from the kind of abundant and grace-filled life which God has made me for? And so perhaps the demons we need to be most concerned with then aren't the ones out there in others, but the ones in here. Maybe in a sense we are that man. The various kinds of recovery groups that are part of our world are all places that recognize the power of our eternal demons. Whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or Overeaters Anonymous or any of the other number of support groups which exist. Their existence is evidence that struggling with our demons is an all-too-human experience. At Trinity, each week we host 11 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. That's just here. You might not know this, but actually AA's founding was also significantly influenced by Sam Shoemaker, who was an Episcopal priest. Who they are and what they're about is rooted in the same kinds of ideas as our own Christian path and journey. One of the gifts these communities have to offer is that they provide insight into how we can meaningfully confront our demons. The 12 steps of AA begin by first admitting you're powerless over alcohol and that your life has become unmanageable. And then second, that you believe a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. Or to put it slightly differently, recovery begins by admitting there's a problem and that it can't be solved on your own. This is a path that's not unique to those recovering from alcoholism at all, though. It's in fact a way of describing the journey of faith that Jesus invites us into. He says to us first, repent, right? Know we need to turn. Part of Christianity is recognizing our need for God. Recognizing that we can't be who God has made us to be on our own. Recognizing we need God and one another to live the kind of abundant and full life God dreams for us. There's a popular turn of phrase, many of you have probably heard it. It's that the church is supposed to be a hospital for sinners, not a hotel for saints. Right? The church is supposed to be a hospital for sinners, not a hotel for saints. Now, I take issue with this in part because I think it gets wrong what a saint is. A saint, after all, is not or never has been a perfect person without sin. Saints, in fact, are those people who try to follow Jesus despite their sin, through their sin. But the underlying truth it gets right is that the church is not a place for perfect people to glorify in their perfection. It's a place for us to admit we each have our own demons, whatever they look like, and a place we can turn to God and one another for help and having the strength to wrestle with them. And the truth is, most of us aren't blessed with the kind of sudden recovery that the man in today's gospel reading had, with Jesus right in front of him who drove the demons out of him. For most of us, keeping our demons at bay is the work of a lifetime. But the good news is that even now God is with us as we seek the kind of wholeness Jesus made possible. The good news is we don't have to struggle alone. We have a God who loves us and a community of faith to walk with. And whether or not you find it difficult to struggle with your own demons, we might also take this a step further and wonder about the ways in which our institutions and organizations can become possessed too. Notice the name given to the demons? Legion, right? It's not accidental. Legion is the name for a unit in the Roman army. And to name the demons possessing the man as legion is to draw our attention towards the larger world in which Jesus lives. The world in which the Romans possessed the Israelites with their military power. And as we think about the world today, maybe this passage is also inviting us to wonder, could racism and sexism and homophobia be kinds of demonic possession? Could the kinds of conflict we have at a political level where we can't even listen to one another be a kind of demonic possession? How is it that these ways of thinking corrupt the world we live in? rather than bring health and wholeness. How is it that we then might be called to be a part of exorcising those demons too, and not just the ones in us as individuals? Now, admittedly, these are not easy answers. There are no easy answers to these questions posed by today's gospel. But then again, even being willing to ask the hard questions about our demons and the demons that possess our institutions is an important first step. We have to see them for what they are. Speak the truth. But before we feel too overwhelmed by this talk of demons, let's not forget that today's passage is ultimately about Jesus healing the man. It's about Jesus helping this man regain his life. And one of the striking details about this passage is that Jesus goes where the need is first. This man didn't call out for help from him. Jesus got into a boat and was going across the lake to the land of Gentiles, a land of the unclean. And he speaks with this unclean man, possessed. And the point of this story and this journey seems to be Jesus' encounter with this man. Because immediately after healing him, the people there ask him to leave, and he does. The point is that Jesus goes where we need him to be. And as one commentator notes, this is, in short, the last place Jesus should be in our minds. Which, when you think about it, is where God usually shows up. At our moments of profound doubt and grief and loss and defeat. And notice, Jesus doesn't heal the man because he does anything to deserve it. He heals him because he loves him despite all that he's done. For that is the God we worship. A God who seeks us out and loves us enough to want us to be whole, no matter what we have done. And so perhaps today this passage can become for us an invitation to name the demons we struggle with, absolutely. And to seek the help we need to overcome them, certainly. But more than that, may it also be a reminder that God's love for us is not bound up in what we do, and that our God will meet us even in the least likely of places. And that is good news indeed. Amen.